Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to the Strong City Network and the ISD for inviting me to join this panel. I apologize for not being able to be with you in Melbourne, but CITED is looking very much forward for this initiative. Urban spaces are prime targets for terrorist organizations. We have seen it in cities all around the world. Cities have responded to the threat of terrorism by installing barriers and closed-circuit cameras in strategic areas, as well as hiring additional law enforcement personnel. However, even with increased security budget, city will likely still face some level of threat, particularly in the age of do-it-yourself terrorism, where anyone could plan an attack based off instructions found on the internet. Protecting these cities is a huge challenge, because we want to do it without losing their openness, without turning our cities into fortresses. For this, we need our communities to work together, and that includes the private sector. The private sector can and is already playing an important role in protecting our cities. Private sector companies are building resilience. They're designing more secure yet open public spaces. Private companies are developing tools that provide protection without impacting our enjoyment of cultural or sports events. We're fortunate to have in this panel a representative from NEC who developed some state-of-the-art technologies for this purpose. Private sector companies can play also an important role in alerting law enforcement. The hotel industry can play a useful role in looking on suspicious activities of their guests. Take, for example, the attack in Las Vegas. A person enters a hotel with 11 suitcases, and just imagine if one of the hotel employees would have reported it to the security officer. The private sector can also support communication during times of crisis. The company JCDecaux, who has designed billboards all across the city of Chicago, has agreed to turn over the control over the billboards in times of crisis. That can be used in order to communicate to citizens in times of crisis. The private sector can also play an important role in recovery from attacks. It can help in the investigation of attacks. Sometimes the private sector may have useful information. Sometimes Uber drivers will be the first ones on the scene and be able to report to law enforcement what they're seeing. The private sector can help also in supporting communities or sectors that have been impacted by terrorist attacks. The city of Nice, for example, has developed an amazing cooperation between public sector and private sector in order to continue supporting its strong tourism industry. Let me say a few words about CITED and the work we are doing for those of you who are less familiar with us. CITED as a body of professionals, was established by the Security Council in order to support its counterterrorism work. Recently, the Council adopted Resolution 2396, which specifically calls upon member states to establish or strengthen national, regional, and international partnerships with both public and private sectors, and to share information and experience in order to prevent, protect, mitigate, and respond to terrorist attack against those targets. So we need partnerships, and we need everyone to join. This is the reason why CITED has joined the ISD in developing this partnership between cities and private sector, so we could all work together to protect our cities, to prevent terrorist attacks, to recover more easily, to investigate, and to allow those who have committed to those attacks to be brought to justice quickly and efficiently. Thank you very much for having me, and we look very much for the result of this discussion today.